sister, Brother Leroy Wilson checking in. Of course, Sean Harris. Sean, that's what I'm talking about, showing up. And just thank all of you for tuning in. But let me start the show off quickly, as I always do, by dedicating the show to my brother and friend, Brother Eric Easton, and to all of those who made it through the week in this city, in this state, and in this country and on the planet, and to all of the supporters, listeners, and just those who have been sponsors of the State of the City. And I thank you for supporting the State of the City, and we do need your support to continue to come longer and stronger. So please, if you can, make your checks, money orders payable to Radio on Fire /SOC State of the City, or we are on Cash App. Our Cash App address is $SOTC Muhammad, MUHA all one word, SOTC MUHA. And of course, to support Radio on Fire, their Cash App is simply Radio on Fire. We'll open up the lines, of course, in the second hour at 404-436-1277. So again, that number is 404-436-1277. Keep it handy, because you want to make sure you can get in where you fit in and fit in where you get in before we bring the show to an end. But let me start the show off again by thanking all of you from the depth of my heart for your support. And those of you that have listened to the show, shared the information by showing that you care with your family, with your friends, to, of course, co-workers and those in your circle as well, in terms of the information that we provided to you last week, and we intend to continue to do, of course, each and every day and each and every way that we're able to come to you on these airwaves. So with that, I want to get right into the show, of course, and get into and talk about part two, as we promised, getting into this Jeffrey Epstein pedophile ring, human trafficking, pedophile ring, organ trafficking, which I think is not being talked about, organ harvesting, because anytime you connect him to the government of Israel, to that state of Israel, to the Knesset and those in Israel, then know that organ harvesting, the number one country for organ harvesting, is the state of Israel. So that can't be dismissed regarding talking about Jeffrey Epstein. But of course, last week we talked about his arrest. We talked about, of course, this was a rabbit hole that runs very deep and steep. There are many layers and players, slayers to this. There's many consumers and groomers to this as well. And we'll get back into some of that tonight, naming more names, naming more foundations, and talking about some of these other headlines that perhaps you overlooked last week after the show. And, of course, after we did the show on Saturday on WFBR, and, of course, everything that happened over the weekend, the blackout in New York City, that there were some raids that took place under the cover of the blackout that the mainstream media hasn't talked about. There was some raids that took place on some facilities up there that hasn't been talked about. And, of course, the predictive programming that we've been telling you, and I've been telling you this coded number that I've been seeing that the mainstream media has been using right in front of the sheeple's face, which was that number 15. And I told you to be mindful, because Monday was July the 15th, and there were some things that would go down. And I'll come back and talk about some of the things that went down here in Baltimore, but also on a national scene in terms of some things that went down on the 15th, because that message had been being coded between the women's FIFA soccer rig game championship, which was given to them to give them that big ticker tape parade as if they had won the Olympic gold medal, right? So they won the FIFA tournament and won, of course, $250,000 for each woman on the team. But then you saw Megan Rapinoe, number 15, being constantly promoted and hyped up, overly hyped for the most part, right? And, of course, you saw mini number 1.5 in terms of Comcast and the money that they had spent, 1.5 million or 1.5 billion. Then you saw the 15-year-old Coco, her last name escapes me, Coco, whatever her name was, that defeated Venus Williams. Again, another rigged game, another rigged match, tennis match. Then you saw, of course, Area 51, where you had some people talking about they were going to storm Area 51, and they wanted, was it a 100,000 or 100,500 people that coming back to that 1.5 again, or that number 15. But you had those talking about storming 51. 51 is a reflection of 15. So there were some things that culminated on this past Monday that, if time permits, I'll come back in and talk about regarding that whole issue of, again, predictive programming. But I want to get back into quickly Epstein. We'll give you some other headlines. And, of course, we'll give you some other websites you can go to. As I gave you last week, whatdoesitmean.com. When you're looking for stories underneath the stories or the back stories and the real stories that's going on, that's a website you can go to and Google and scroll down and see the articles that are there. And we'll get back into some of those headlines tonight. Whatdoesitmean.com. Also looking at beforeitsnews.com is another website. Now, I know you got the Alex Jones, you got the David Ikes that still put out relevant information, but you got to cross-reference their information with other sources as well. So you can't just take their information on, some of you take it on face value alone, because that might be the value or the face that you value, not me, okay? But I don't limit it to just saying you're going to get your information from black news sources, because most of the black news sources, unfortunately, mimic and parrot most of them, not these independent ones like we have here at Radio on Fire and others that are around the country for the most part. Not Straight Black Pride, War on the Horizon, Brother Irritated Genie. Not Dr. Randy Short with what he's been doing. And as promised, they will be joining me on the State of the City radio show on this upcoming Saturday at WFBR. But let me get into this piece. Is from Real Jew News. That's another website, Real Jew News by Brother Nathaniel. Nathaniel is spelled Nathaneel. And this is a white guy that puts out good information. Nathaneel, Brother Nathaniel's channel. So he is a Jew who puts out good information regarding, again, what's going on inside of America and globally. And he exposes, of course, the synagogue of Satan and those Zionists that are controlling foreign policy in America, controlling many of the politicians' Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and part of the fight that Trump has, even though he has members in his family that have married on to, of course, those Zionists as well. But he still has that fight that's taking place. And I'll come back and talk about how this whole hoopla, which, of course, broke on the 15th with these 4 women, which they call in the squad, like there's some MTV, Spice Girls, all this, right as that Charlie's Angels, if you went to the movies this week, right as this Charlie Angels trailer comes out, right, with these new millennial Charlie Angels. But I'm going to come back and talk about that and show you who these 4 women are that's being heavily promoted right now and who are their controllers and who are their handlers as well. But we're going to get back into Jeffrey Epstein for, I think, this first 30 minutes talking about the pedophile rings, because as I said before, these rings in Florida, these rings in New York, the rings in Hollywood, the rings that stretches to the Caribbeans and to Haiti, of course, and even into Israel, into Africa. So you got to know that, because, again, these are crimes against children, crimes against humanity. And at a time, if you go back at recent history, where President Trump, I think it was last year, pardoned Jack Johnson. A lot of people don't know that Jack Johnson, the boxer, was convicted based on what they called the Mann Act, that as a man, you couldn't take a minor across state lines. So they used the Mann Act to come down on Jack Johnson, and it took Trump. You can check the record. It took Trump, even though you got those that talk about him, it took Trump to pardon him. Obama wouldn't pardon him. Now, how long Jack Johnson been dead? Think about that. You can scratch your head on that. How long Jack Johnson been dead? And it was the family of Marcus Garvey that's been talking about getting Garvey pardoned. Not that I think Garvey needs to be pardoned at all, because he didn't do anything wrong. But if that's what his son wants to do, Julius Garvey and then Marcus Garvey Jr., then they ought to take their petition straight to Trump. I mean, he got a track record of pardoning black men. So I would take it to Trump if I'm the Garvey family, rather than talk about you need a petition. So again, don't look at the label. Look at what they're putting on the table. And as I always say, when the deals are cut, which I'm going to come back and talk about a little, if time permits tonight, are these opportunity zones. Because again, when the deals are cut, as a people, and as the mobsters and the syndicates say, in Chicago, in New York, in Philadelphia, in Boston, in Los Angeles, in Baltimore, in Washington, D.C., when the deals are cut, if you're not at the table, then your ass and assets are going to be up on the menu. And if you don't believe me, go and look at that movie Hoodlum. Go watch The Godfather, because I know a lot of you brothers, y'all have an affinity for The Godfather. You got the whole series probably in your library right now. You waiting on that Scarface to come out that they've been talking about, the redo, with Leonardo DiCaprio to come out. But the bottom line is, or go see Hoodlum with Lawrence Fishburne. Because when he plays Bumpy Johnson, they show you when the deals are cut and if you're not at the table. And he went there representing the madam up in New York, right? But when Luciano was at the table, Bumpy Johnson was at the table, and all the other syndicates and mob families were at the table. The one person that wasn't at the table was Dutch Schultz, a.k.a. Arthur Flagenheimer, right? And what did they do when he wasn't at the table? They served him up. They had his driver execute him. So all I'm saying is that when these deals are being cut regarding what is going to take place in your cities, because all politics are local. It's the Council on Foreign Relations motto, act global, think globally, but act locally. So you better be thinking globally, but acting locally as well. Think about Africa over there, but of course build up on Africa right here, in the mind and in the behind, because it's going to start right here. Or whatever it is that we do. These black communities are African communities. So let me share this clip from Brother Nathaniel talking about the missing links in the Epstein sex crimes, because just as he was arrested, there were supposed to have been some court hearings. The judge, as I mentioned on the State of the City the other day, who was the initial judge that had the case, Robert Sweet, he died, they said of natural causes, in Idaho. He died in March. Then this case get brought back up in July, pardon me. And of course, as I talked about last week, in Florida, they talked about, of course, the attorney at that time, or the prosecutor, Acosta, who knew and was told by Mueller, as I shared with you last week, that he should not bring federal charges against Epstein because Epstein was in fact an agent or an informant working for the FBI. So Acosta, who resigned last Friday when you had again the Democrats, you had, of course, the fake white liberals, you had the fake white feminists trying to use Acosta as a red herring or as a albatross around the neck of Donald Trump for the elections coming up in 2020. So Acosta makes his move, or Trump has to make the move. He resigns as the labor secretary. And this was 2 days before Mueller was supposed to come to testify, which would be, today's what, Tuesday, Wednesday? Mueller was supposed to come testify today on the 17th. They have now moved Mueller's testimony back till next Thursday. The court hearing for Jeffrey Epstein was supposed to be he was arrested on, I think it was the 9th or the 8th. The court hearing was supposed to be the 11th, and the judge has now pushed it back. And the judge they gave the case to was a Miss Pritzker, and I think they passed it on now to a Judge Marr, M-A-R-R. So again, as I said before, if Mueller had been the head of the FBI at that time, then Mueller could have charged federally Epstein using the Mann Act. And at that time, Obama was the president, and his attorney general was Eric Holder. And I hope many of you remember Eric Holder in Operation Fast and Furious. If you don't, Google Eric Holder and Operation Fast and Furious, because it was Judicial Watch that went to court and filed the paperwork that led Eric Holder having to resign. And then Obama, not only did he pardon Eric Holder, but he also pardoned Eric Holder's wife. But a lot of people don't know that. Operation Fast and Furious was the gun running that was going on across the Arizona-Mexican border. And the only way it came to light, right, was that a border agent was shot and killed. And that's what led to Holder having to resign. And then Obama pardoned him, pardoned his wife, and I think pardoned the mother-in-law, because they're always kind of tied into it with the emails. And that's when Congress charged him with contempt, because he wouldn't come forth and tell everything that he knew. And I've talked about this many times in terms of, and then Loretta Lynch comes in. So Lynch comes in, and the first thing she did when she was in New York, she met with Al Sharpton. You can pull the record up. She met with Al Sharpton and the family of Eric Garner, since this is the anniversary of the death of Eric Garner. And so the other big story that some are trying to say is that the Attorney General, Bob Barr, won't bring charges against the police officers in New York. But you had your opportunity, talking to the black community now, when Obama was in there. But what did Obama do? What did Eric Holder do? What did Loretta Lynch do? And I've talked about this. Loretta Lynch, when she was the prosecutor in New York, she met with Al Sharpton and the Garner family right after it happened and told them that she wasn't going to bring charges as a New York prosecutor. Then she gets elevated to the Attorney General of the United States of America and still refuses to bring charges. But yet you ain't see Al Sharpton lead not one march against Eric Holder, not one march against Loretta Lynch. I'm just keeping it plain for you right now. So don't be selective with your outrage is what I'm saying. You want to condemn Trump and his Attorney General and Bob Barr, but when it happened under Eric Holder and it happened under Loretta Lynch and she was in New York, Loretta Lynch did nothing. In fact, she let the police officers get off the hook. Same thing with Eric Holder. Show me one police officer that they prosecuted federally for killing a black man or a black boy. But yeah, you say Black Lives Matters, right? But it didn't matter to Obama. Didn't matter to Eric Holder. It didn't matter to Loretta Lynch. Only thing they did was cut deals and continue to give money to these police departments to use military equipment under that 1033 program, right? To militarize more police departments and then federalize the police departments and then put them under these federal consent decrees, which oftentimes ain't worth the paper that they printed on. All of this is another way for more federal dollars to flow in, but as these cities get the federal dollars, they got to put more money toward training. And then who do you think get the training contracts? Those that's connected politically to the Obamas, Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch. It's all a game, man. It's all a game. Never really to give our people justice. So I just wanted to mention that because I know today was the anniversary of the death of Eric Garner. And remember, his daughter, a few years ago, right before she died, she didn't want nothing to do with Al Sharpton because she saw Al Sharpton for what he really was, man, and what he's always has been. Nothing but an FBI, Rockefeller Foundation agent. That's it. No more, no less. So with that, let me go to this clip of Epstein talking about, Brother Nathaniel talking about Epstein, and I'll come back and talk about some of the names that I didn't mention last week, like Ghislaine Maxwell and some of these other people that are tied to Epstein. And since Epstein's arrest, no one has seen Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the daughter of the late Robert Maxwell, who many people know was no more than a British Israeli spy. So this family, whose real last name is Hyman, Hyman, not Maxwell. You can pull up his obituary, go to his bio. But Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, was a guest of honor at Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's home. Had dinner recently with Bill Clinton up at Madison's up in New York. She attended Chelsea Clinton's, of course, her wedding. And, of course, there was photos of her years ago when they said she was dating Epstein. And there was photos with her in 1997 with Donald Trump. So Trump, of course, frequented some of them circles because remember, Trump, one of his mentors was Roy Cohn. And everybody know Roy Cohn was part of that gay mob up in New York. I'm just keeping it 100 now. Roy Cohn was a part of that gay mafia up in New York, okay? But just wanted to lay that out because I'll come back and name some other names as well regarding these pedophile human trafficking rings, and then go a little deeper and talk about how that tied into the NXIVM trafficking ring, which was tied into Canada with the Bronfman family. And if you don't know about the Bronfman family, they are the Seagram's Air Company. And if you don't know about that, get the book by Lyndon LaRouche. His organization wrote a book years ago called Dope Incorporated. Dope Inc. On the front cover is the picture of the British Crown. But it's entitled Dope Inc., the book that drove Henry Kissinger crazy. And they have an entire chapter dedicated to the Bronfman family. In fact, in Yiddish, the word Bronfman means liquor man. They talk about how the Bronfmans got started in Canada, moving, of course, what you call then bootlegging, right? And that's where the term Canada Dry came in at, because they couldn't get no moonshine or bootleg. So they came up with the term when they finally set up Seagram's, Canada Dry, because Canada was dry. And then all they did was flip the outfit down here to America, right? In Detroit, in Michigan, in Philadelphia, Baltimore. You know, there was a Seagram's plant here for a long time now, all right? Many Seagram's plants. But just all I'm saying is that the Bronfmans were working for Meyer Lansky and Murder, Inc. And then they rolled their money into real estate. He became the head of Tropicana orange juice. And of course, the liquor industry, which they was controlling. Then they moved into the entertainment industry. That they owned a lot of these hip hop artists. They started Universal Music Group, man. Edgar Bronfman Jr. is still a part of Universal Music Group. And I think one of the grandsons was dating, I think it was a few years ago, some of the members of the Nation of Islam was running around here like they was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs for, what's the guy called himself? Jay Electronica or something? Is that his name, brother? Jay Electronic? Yeah, the rapper. Oh, he was dating one of the Bronfman girls at that time. So I was trying to figure out how he could be a 5%er, but he was dating this white girl, this Jewish girl. You know what I mean? And nobody is yet. Yeah, nobody. He was dating Erykah Badu. So okay, all right, okay. Before her, right. But nevertheless, the Bronfman family, of course, and the whole music industry that they have controlled, and of course the liquor industry as well. And of course, Edgar Bronfman, before he died, a few years ago he died, he, of course, was the head of the World Jewish Congress. And when the Jews got reparations, a lot of the reparations flowed through those 12 or 20 major Jewish organizations. And Edgar Bronfman was, of course, basically the lead man and moving forward with that. Now, I ain't got no problem with them getting reparation. We ought to be fighting for reparation. We shouldn't get caught up in a distraction. And I'm not talking about reparations as some of the ADOS members be talking about. No disrespect to those that's supporting the ADOS members. But I'm talking about those of us who are victims, the OVs, as my brother Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. said, the original victims of terrorism, okay? The transatlantic slave trade, since we are in 2019. So we ought to be at the United Nations, not in Washington, D.C., talking about reparations right now. And demanding reparations and using what the Jews did then. They used what was called the Alien Tort Reform Act to go after reparations from corporations. But then when it came to the brothers and sisters in South Africa, some of them same Jewish corporations, because they were moving forward to get reparations for apartheid or apartheid, then them same Jewish corporations told the South Africans, well, we got to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. They didn't have that for them. And when they talk about the Nazis and going after the Nazi, what no damn Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So as Dick Gregory always says, don't change the script or flip the script when our turn comes up. And we ought to be talking about reparations just in this city for those that's been victim from lead paint poisoning in Baltimore City, but then every city in America. But we got to go to the root in terms of reparations for our transatlantic enslavement and our Ma'afa. So you tune to the State of the City. So I just wanted to put that out there, but let me get into the Epstein, because I know some of y'all been waiting to get more of this information, and I got so much. Kind of like my one of my greatest singers was that maestro Barry White. He said, I got so much love to give. So I got so much information to give, and most of it don't require a lot of notes, but I did have to write some points that I wanted to make sure that I emphasize. But let me go to this clip of Brother Nathaniel talking about the missing links in the Epstein sex crime. So listen to this, and we'll be back with more.
Just who is Jeffrey Epstein? He's a Jew, a hedge funder, a pedophile, and resident of Manhattan, Paris, Florida, and if granted bail, Israel. Once smug and arrogant, a recent mug shows a low and dejected Jew. Or as the record renders, a registered sex offender.
A registered sex offender who made a fortune as a hedge fund manager in the 1980s and 90s, known for his lavish lifestyle and high-profile connections. Jeffrey Epstein is facing new allegations that he exploited dozens of young girls for sex.
Victims were given cash payments if they could bring other underage girls to be similarly abused, and that's how he continue to expand the number of new victims that he had.
And feasibly, an expanded network leading all the way to Tel Aviv, known as a global hub of human trafficking. We're at the tip of the iceberg as we ooze into the political mud of Jewish villainy. For with Epstein's massive international contacts and untold assets outside the U.S., the feds entered a strongly worded 10-page no-bail memo pending Epstein's bail hearing next week. They cited Epstein's history of intimidating and tampering with witnesses, as well as deeming him an extreme flight risk. Because if Epstein does make bail, he'd surely beeline to Israel to join his fellow lawless fugitive billionaires, since the Jewish state doesn't extradite criminals of its own who come from everywhere. And with Epstein's ties to Israel's Ehud Barak, whose name's in Jeffrey's black book, we might have a secret agent man in this Jewish sex pervert.
Because now in studio, Mike Wagenheim, our diplomatic correspondent. Again, this story now wrapping up former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. Explain the Barak-Epstein connection here.
Barak received about $2.3 million from the Wexner Foundation, which was a philanthropic organization largely run by Epstein himself in conjunction with somebody who he organized and administered financial consultancy for at the given time. So Barak apparently did research consulting for this particular firm. It's a foundation that advances Jewish professional development, Israeli professional development as well. What exactly did he do for the Wexner Foundation? Nobody really knows. Barak refuses to say. He says it was research related. That research was never published. The Wexner Foundation and obviously Epstein himself are not saying anything either. However, Barak was photographed coming out of the apartment of Epstein in New York in 2016. The work he did for the foundation dates back to 2006.
Speculations abound that Epstein, via his tryst with Barak, is an Israeli intelligence operative knee-deep in a decades-long Mossad honey trap. Their game, via the Jewish pervert Epstein, to entice U.S. hacks into their honey trap and string them into a blackmail sting. Let's hope the feds flush out the Israeli Epstein ring. That is, if Dershowitz doesn't hook his Jewish nose into it. For in the Florida case against Epstein, Dershowitz and his synagogue buddy, Barry Krischer, the state prosecutor, were about to let the sex predator walk. The Palm Beach cops were disgusted and called in the FBI and Acosta, who with much resistance from the Yids, claiming state jurisdiction, at least were able to get Epstein a jail sentence ending up as 13 months, and a permanent registration as sex offender, much to the dismay of Dershowitz and Krischer. Surely Dershowitz made a bundle out of Epstein's pedophile-enabled money for professional services rendered. Conniving Jews get special honors too, with the ADL granting Krischer their Jurisprudence Award just last December. Who says crime doesn't pay? It must pay well, since Jews commit crimes, vile, corrupt, and mercenary ones every single day.
Well, welcome back. You heard that one, of course. That was from Brother Nathaniel, the Brother Nathaniel Foundation, who gives the real Jew news. So, again, all of this is just giving you more information about Jeffrey Epstein and his ties. And he mentioned, of course, if he's able to get bail, because clearly he, being an informant, working for Mueller, right, which means he was working for the FBI, which means he was working for Israel as well, gathering information on politicians, on celebrities, right, in Hollywood, and then you can use that to extort them out of something else. Sometimes that's all part of the initiations. And as I told you last week, right here in Baltimore, when I talked to C. Miles, the great C. Miles, he told me about some of them things was going on up in them hotels with some of your black politicians. If time permits, I'm going to come back and talk about headlines in the Sun paper yesterday, local news, Kirk Smoke. Because when I told y'all many times, when they brought Kirk Smoke back here, they brought him back here for a certain reason. They ran him out of town last time when Kirk Smoke and Stu Sims and a few other black politicians, the Boulay Gamma chapter, had promised the mob that they were going to bring casinos when Glendenning was the governor. And Glendenning double-crossed Kirk Smoke and Stu Sims. Kirk Smoke got ran out of town, because normally when you're the mayor, you go from the mayor to the governor. The only time it didn't happen is when you had the black politicians that was in the mayor's seat. Kirk Smoke was the first one. Then came Sheila Dixon. She couldn't be elevated to go move to become governor. She got co-opted and then cold dropped it, as I said. Then after that came Stephanie Rawlins. She couldn't move up for mayor, congresswoman, senator, nothing. Then after her now, Kathy Pugh. Healthy Holly, and anybody seen Kathy lately, man? It's almost, 3 months? Ain't nobody seen Kathy? We got to put an APB out on that broad. But all I'm saying is, again, does no good to have these people in positions of power when they have no power. And they're not wise enough, right, to be able to maneuver around racism and white supremacy. So Kurt Schmoke wasn't able to go to the governor's mansion. He got ran out of town and went down to Howard University and was over the law school. Now they've conveniently brought Kurt Schmoke back within the past 2 years because they got another purpose for him. And he was front page talking about merging Coppin State University with the University of Baltimore and CCB. Now I told y'all that was part of the plan because I'm gonna come back and talk about them opportunity zones. Coppin State University is in the opportunity zone. University of Baltimore is downtown by Penn Station. They're not in the opportunity zone. BCC or CCB is up the street from Mondawmin, which is another major opportunity zone hub. This is nothing more than a land grab. But if it was a white president that said that, y'all be in the streets ready to fight him. But they used Kurt Schmoke to sell it to you, who is a Rhodes Scholar after Cecil Rhodes. So he took that oath. He took that, of course, those initiations that C. Miles told me about. And they tell me now Kurt Schmoke got a straight up boyfriend. I don't know if y'all seen him late. Tell me he got a straight up boyfriend now. So I think he done came on out the closet. I don't know if he was the Grand Marshal at the Pride last month. But all I'm saying is Kurt Schmoke is dangerous, man. He was dangerous as the mayor because the Zionist Jews like Ron Shapiro controlled Kurt Schmoke. Now they brought him back and they controlling Kurt Schmoke. And while Morgan and Coppin and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore and Bowie has been talking about a lawsuit regarding, again, HBCUs, they're getting ready to put the final nail in the coffin to that whole lawsuit. Because once they put Morgan, they're going to put Morgan under John Hopkins if you haven't figured that one out by now. And David Wilson, who's a boule, has been telling you that they are partnering with John Hopkins. So look at the moves they're making. Morgan is sitting in an opportunity zone. That whole shopping center, Northwood, is an opportunity zone. And I heard Wilson on Faraji Muhammad's show say that we want to move the opportunity zone all the way down to Hillen, all the way down into Clifton Park, which is, of course, Lake Clifton, which was the summer home of John Hopkins, the, what do you call him, a Quaker? He say he was a Quaker. I say he was a cracker, and he was a slave owner, okay? The cracker Quaker, or the Quaker quacker, however you want to call it. But he was a slave owner. And if you don't believe me, pull up. I used to keep the paperwork. I ain't like my man out there, Brother David Johnson. Shout out to Brother David Johnson, because he keeps a lot of his files. A lot of times I keep some of my files and some of them because, you know, I've moved around. So you move around a lot. Some of them files got to go, but you got to be able to retain it right there. But they talked about at the Maryland Historic Society that Johns Hopkins, who never married because he wanted to marry his first cousin Elizabeth, and the family forbid it. And so therefore they both said since they couldn't marry each other, neither one of them would ever get married. But they had a farm or a plantation out in Crofton, Maryland called Hopkins Farm, and it's right out there. They still got a Hopkins Road right there at Hopkins and Evergreen off of Route 3 in Crofton, Maryland. And anyway, they had a whiskey called Hopkins Best Whiskey. You can pull it up. Hopkins Best Whiskey. And that's how they made their money, off of tobacco, off of the slave labor, and Hopkins Best Whiskey, which he was working with his uncle and distributing Hopkins Best Whiskey. So always understand, when they talk about John Hopkins, they never tell you anything intelligent he ever said, because he wasn't an intelligent man. You'll never hear nobody. It's a great institution, but you don't never hear nobody quote John Hopkins. They quote Paul Revere, tell me the British is coming. Before they quote Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, man. But they don't quote John Hopkins, right? So I just wanted to put that out there because plans are being made about you without you. And as I keep coming back to the point, and if you're not at the table, you're going to be up on the menu. You are going to be on the menu. And while our black politicians, which I'm going to come back and spread in this opportunity zone piece, is using these boogeyman politics, got you politics, they're not telling our people about these opportunity zones and how our people can use them to our best benefit. And even those that sit up on radio every morning dumbing you down, they sitting on boards of CDCs like the Druid Height Development Corporation, but not telling you about it. So I wanted to just put that out there But I want to get back into this Epstein news because I'm going to have to do a whole entire show in August, at least probably once a week, talking about these opportunity zones, putting up a war room board to show you, right? Wash, rinse, and repeat. So you can see where these opportunity zones in Baltimore. And if you were listening around the country, you are in a city or state that has been designated as a federal opportunity zone. And your legislators, your mayors, your federal officials, congressmen, and senators are not telling you about it, but yet their family members, their relatives, and those in their inner sanctum or circle are going to get rich and richer off of these opportunity zones. While they down there telling you that they got a problem with Trump, but yet they taking the same money, the same resources that Trump has signed through the opportunity zones to enrich themselves. So in the words of Aretha Franklin, who's zooming who? Okay? Who's zooming who? So with that, let me go a little deeper as we talking about this, man, and get on into this website, whatdoesitmean.com, because I think there were some things that happened over the weekend that you heard about, but I don't think you really saw, and many haven't taken the time to kind of explain it. But you can go to the website, what does it mean, all one word, whatdoesitmean.com, and they lay out some things that happened over the weekend that I think you might want to know about that the mainstream news media definitely is not touching. And many of the media don't want to talk about this Epstein because you might have some of the members in the media that's tied into this as well. Okay? Let's be clear about that. You may have some members in the media that may be tied into these orgies and this human trafficking and sex trafficking of young girls as well. So you got to know that. That's why most of your mainstream media won't touch this story, man. I know in this city, this is a pedophile haven right here in Baltimore City. I know that for a fact. So they definitely don't want to touch this story. But here's an article here. EMP blackout takedown of Clinton's office in New York City by FBI impresses Russian military. FBI blacks out New York City during raid on Clinton's office as Democrat Party child sex empire crumbles. So you got to understand that. FBI requests export permit for Russian underground radar system to probe bizarre temple-like structure on Jeffrey Epstein's private island. So again, I won't pull this up and read all of it, but clearly you know there was a blackout in New York City on Saturday. And they said even Con Ed, which is of course the big energy company, right, that I think Exelon is making a move to buy, going all the way up and down the East Coast, will be Exelon. Exelon come out of Chicago. That's Obama's boys. That's Bill Ayers, who was with the underground weathermen. What's his name? Bill Ayers, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dawn. It's Obama mentor. His daddy owned Exelon. All right. Now Exelon has snaked this way from Chicago. The law firm for Exelon is the law firm that Michelle Obama and Barack Obama come out of. What's that? Sidley Austin. That's the law firm, Sidley Austin. Okay? So they've snaked their way all the way now, coming through Ohio. They've come into Maryland. They've gotten BG&E, which we call Baltimore Gangster Enterprise, because you're going to pay them BG&E bills. They're the real gangsters around here. Not the Bloods and the Crips, but the white gorilla family, as my brother David Anthony Wiggins always referred to them as. And we refer to as BG&E. Baltimore Gangster Enterprise, because you're going to pay that money. Okay? All right? Or you will be in the dark. All right? And you better not be a day late or a penny short. Okay? But I always say pay yourself first before you pay them. But nevertheless, Exelon has come in and bought BG&E or Constellation Energy, which it became. And now they've gone down into D.C. and bought Pepco. I know a couple of brothers and sisters work for Pepco. They done bought them out, man. And then they bringing in the Indians, or they're subcontracting with the Indians, which is a whole nother piece that we're going to eventually talk about. They're creating a caste system in the country right now where the blacks going to be at the bottom. Then the Hispanics will be one step above you. Then the Indians going to be the new middle class that they're bringing into the country right now, if you haven't peeked that. The Indians and the Asians, or the Indians who they say are Asians. And then the whites will be up top. They're setting up that same caste system that the British have set up in the Caribbeans, all right, in the Dominican Republic. Why you think they treat the Haitians like that, even though they share the same island? Okay? They set it up in Africa. And, of course, wherever that skunk of the planet Earth has gone. He set that system up like that. As the Most High Elijah Muhammad said and teaches, the smartest devil of them all. He said that American devil will fool you about 95% of the time. He said, but that English devil, he gonna fool you 100% of the time. So they set up that caste system, particularly in South Africa and other countries in Africa as well. But again, all of this ties into the pedophile rings. And then, of course, we mentioned last week, Ed Buck in California. Now, the prosecutor is now saying that she's going to bring charges. They got a black woman. Her name escapes me. But it's a black woman who says she's now going to bring charges against Ed Buck, another big mega millionaire, billionaire donor to the Democratic Party. He was a bundler for Obama, which means he was collecting thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for Obama in Arizona when Obama ran for president in 2008 and then 2012. By that time, he had moved to California. But there was been two men that was found dead in the home of Ed Buck, one being Jamel Moore, the other one being Timothy Dean. But now the prosecutor out there, who's a black woman, said she's going to bring charges against Ed Buck. But know that if Ed Buck had two black men that died in his home, there may be more black men as well. So that's why we're talking about this. When you hear about black men dying, young black men, you don't know if it's for the organ trafficking, organ harvesting, or not. But they flew that one young man, Gamel Moore, all the way from Texas to California. You can pull up the story. I read it and played it last week. But again, all I'm saying is these are people that's tied big to the Democratic Party. The other piece was this Nexum pedophile ring and trafficking ring, in which two of the Bronfman girls were tied into it as well. Rebecca Bronfman, she took a plea deal. And there was another Bronfman, but it went to Canada and also to Arizona. Now, the one in Arizona was tied to the Clinton Foundation as well. But most people don't know about this. So the foundations that we're talking about here was the Wexner Foundation. Wexner is named after, I think his first name is Leslie Wexner, who's again, mega millionaire, billionaire Jew, Zionist Jew, heavily tied to Israel. He's the CEO of Victoria's Secrets. Okay? So he was the mentor of Jeffrey Epstein. So they talked about him being tied to the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Baruch. And there was the big fight between him and Netanyahu this week, talking about that because they're running, one wants to get back in office, I think, over in that Israeli Knesset, Ehud Baruch. So there's also the Tide Foundation. The Tide Foundation, TIDE. Now, the Tide Foundation is very important because the Black Lives Matters and these other groups gets a lot of money from the Tide Foundation. There was a big article in the Washington Times, I think last year, talking about a big meeting that took place in Washington, D.C. with the Democratic Alliance, the Democracy Alliance, headed up by Soros. Everybody that's in this group has to put up minimum of $200,000. But it's George Soros, Tim Steyer, or Tom Steyer, the mega billionaire that put out that whole, we going to impeach Trump, right? And when they couldn't get, right? Now he's going to run for president. So Trump, if nothing else, is making many of them take off this mask of civility. That's why I like it. Make them take off the mask so we can see them as they really are. See, because they've been masquerading, man. You know George Benson talk about that masquerade, and our people get lost in this masquerade for the most part. They truly get lost because many of our great leaders have told us that our problem wasn't the Ku Klux Klan. He said, we know where the Klan stand. Our problem wasn't that white, staunch, white ring, redneck cracker. He said, our problem was the fake white liberal. Malcolm X told you about the fake white liberal. Dr. King said that it was our greater obstacle to our people moving forward is the fake white liberal. See? But most of our people don't ever want to see them as our enemies, man. You take them as your frenemies, not your enemies. Okay? So now there's the Wexner Foundation, the Tide Foundation. You can pull up the article. I'm not going to pull it up. But there was a big article in the Washington Times talking about the Tide Foundation. That's tied to the Bronfman. Okay? So now you also have this other group or foundation called which Ghislaine Maxwell is tied to, called the Terra Mar, TerraMar Project. And it's a foundation. So they were the ones that was flying these girls outside of the country in terms of transcontinental flights, okay? And she's tied to Richard Branson. Now, for those of you who don't know Richard Branson, and you listen to Brother Muhammad, Irritated Genie, Dr. Randy Short, we talked about Richard Branson. Virgin, Virgin, right? Richard Branson, Virgin. Pull him up. Now, your ex-president, well, some of y'all say he wasn't your president, but you was rapping a song, My President's Black. Now, your ex-president, the first place he went after he left the White House, when he and Michelle left the White House, he didn't go on vacation with Michelle Obama. You can pull up the article. The first place he went was on vacation with Richard Branson. Now, everybody know Richard Branson is an openly gay white man, okay? Pull up the article and the pictures, Obama swimming, or not swimming, we call it when they're on the back of the boat and they on the well, you know what it's talking about. You just pull up Obama vacationing with Richard Branson, all right? And you'll see the article for yourself, okay? So Branson is tied into this as well, man, is what I'm saying. This rabbit hole runs very, very, very deep. When we start opening this thing up, there's many layers to this onion, as we've been talking about this whole thing of human trafficking, child trafficking, and of course, we haven't even gone down the rabbit hole to talk about adrenochrome, which I mentioned on the State of the City on this past Saturday. We haven't even gotten into that. But that's part of the Atlanta child murders, as the great Baba D. Gregory talked about. Again, going after the alpha interferon. And of course, the place where most alpha interferon is stored for black men and black boys is in the testicles. So when you go back and look at the Atlanta child murders, all those boys were geniuses, and there was 2 little girls, and all of them were killed that lived around, I think it was Memorial Drive, if my memory, of course, comes back. They all lived in the same community around the Memorial Drive in Atlanta. And it was all tied into, that time, the CDC and Emory University, okay? But they were trying to get, not trying, but to get the alpha interferon. And they had to cut off like the tips of their penises. And so when the little boys had died, the way they drew out the alpha interferon made them look like they had aged years because of what they had did to their bodies. And of course, they just took that experiment and moved on to another city. A lot of people don't know that. So when you hear about missing children, don't think it's just some children that ran away. And as I keep saying, we got to do the work to set up our own alert system, set up our own internet system, be able to set up local search teams, because we're not going to get the same attention for our little black boys and little black girls when they go missing as they're going to give to Molly, or they're going to give to Amber, or they're going to give to somebody else. So we got to set up a system so that if our children or our loved ones go missing, then we got to be able to set that up. So again, you tune to the State of the City. So I just wanted to lay that out there as we're talking about this whole issue of Jeffrey Epstein, because again, things I think the mainstream news media is trying to keep it so it doesn't connect to the Clintons and so many others right now, right? But they do want to show you some old photos of him in 97 or 2002, I think, with Trump. And so they'll use that to make that an issue on Trump as he goes forward. But they're not going to talk about the others. So that's part of the game right there. So it's like they want to do a surgery, like micro mini surgery. We're going to talk about this one, but we're not going to talk about that one. But in the meanwhile, again, if Epstein was this big agent, he wouldn't be sitting in jail. You understand? So the question is Trump and those with him trying to take down that deep state, and if this Department of Justice, which we know presidents come and go, but a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for, as Eisenhower talked about, the military, we call it the Congressional Military Industrial Complex, that they stay in many of these positions inside of, basically, which again, those called the deep state. They stay in these positions. Presidents come and go. So what ends up happening is that's the fight between these groups of whites in these various different places and spaces. So clearly, if the Department of Justice was serious about taking down Epstein, then as I keep coming back to, you got to look at who's handling the case. In New York, the one person that they want to handle the case is James Comey's daughter. Her name is Maureen Comey. But they're giving the case not to the sex crimes unit. You know, we all watch Law and Order. It'd be the sex crimes unit handling things. They're giving it to the public corruption unit. So it lets you see there's a fight, right, that's taking place behind, even within that why would you give it to the public corruption unit and not to the sex crimes unit? Clearly is what we're talking about and what we're dealing with here. So keep your eye on that. But let me see if I can give you a little of this article, man, that's talking about the EMP blackout takedown of raid that took place in New York City on Saturday. And as I told you, of course, keep your eye out for the 15th. And I'll come back and talk about this whole issue of what took place in Baltimore on the 15th with this attack at a methadone clinic, which still hasn't been explained for the most part, right? 6:30 in the morning, somebody going up in the methadone clinic, robbing the clinic at 6:30 in the morning, and one police officer gets shot, 2 individuals are killed, the so-called robber and the person who worked there at the clinic. But when it first went down, they said that this was a lone active shooter drill. So you got to stay awake to these things that are going down and ask questions and question everything as well. And then ask, of course, always, as a good criminologist, ask, Key Bono, who benefits or how are they trying to benefit from this? And if we play it straight, if somebody died, of course, all life has value. But again, you still got to ask, if somebody's going into a methadone clinic, they got cameras on the outside, cameras on the inside, right? They got armed security out there as well. So you got to ask what really happened and how come the videotapes hasn't been released. Not the police officers' body cameras, but the videotapes of what they told us happened. Let us see it for ourselves, right? Then the bigger pictures has to be what new policy will they be trying to implement out of what they said happened on Monday the 15th on Maryland Avenue at the facility called Man Alive. Man Alive. So he's like, is that code language? Man Alive, right? Is that code language? And of course, the other issue, or many issues to that, is why they're oversaturating the black community with these opioid centers. It's the black community where if you go from North to Charles, the fake white liberals who claimed they was progressive liberals, Red Emma's, they had a bookstore right there on North Avenue. Somebody came in a few years ago, so they said, a man shot another man inside of Red Emma's bookstore. They closed the bookstore. Now Red Emma's is down by the Lyric and the BSO, right? So if we play this story straight, how come no one is saying, I understand y'all got to open up opioid centers. Now, when you do the research, you find out that many of these opioid centers are being controlled by Wall Street. If you don't believe me, Google Bain Capital, B-A-I-N, Bain Capital, now investing in opioid centers. Bain Capital, for those of you that don't know, the president and the chair of Bain Capital is the brother who used to be the governor of Massachusetts, Obama's best friend. Deval Patrick is the head of Bain Capital. The same Bain Capital that they said a Republican was the head of in Mitt Romney. Y'all remember that whole thing about Bain Capital and came to light right as the name Bane was coming out in the movie Batman, Dark Knight Rises, right? So that's when we first heard the term Bain Capital. Most of us, right, got introduced to Bain Capital. So Bain Capital and Wall Street is now investing in opioid centers, man. And they're giving money to many states. So states now are allowing these opioid centers to open up, and they're oversaturating them in the black community. Then you're giving individuals drugs. Y'all, we see them, man. You see them downtown. You see them uptown. And from north in Maryland, north in Charles, right? Coming all the way up here to 25th Street, man. You probably run out of, you definitely gonna run out of fingers and toes counting how many opioid centers they got up and down here, man. You gonna run out of you got 10 fingers, 10 toes. You gonna run out of them, man. You might run out of them by the time you get to 22nd Street, right? Right? And I ain't even talking about the trannies that be out there with them too now, all right? Because the trannies out there slinging, right? They slinging drugs and slinging penises at the same time. You know what I mean? The trannies out there with them. Y'all know what I'm saying is true. Don't act like you know what I'm saying is true. Okay? Trannies out there all day, all night. I don't know what they on, man. They out there all damn day. Sometimes I'm out at night doing some runs, man. They out late night and they out there early in the morning. Okay? So if you're going to have some treatment centers, why not take an example of what I think is the senior centers they have at Oak Crest and also out at Charlestown. When you go out there, man, they got gated community. If you ever been out there, that's where William Donald Schaefer, or y'all know he was William Donald Gayfer. Y'all just never want to say he was Gayfer. Y'all knew he was gay, okay? That's why he want to stay living up Evanston Avenue, all right? All that time when all the whites was leaving Evanston Village, he was staying up Evanston Village. And y'all know the history of William Donald Gayfer, okay? Let's be clear about that, all right? So, nevertheless, why not have facilities similar to Oak Crest and Charlestown, where everything that the seniors need are right there in those facilities? It's senior living. They all got their own apartments. They got their breakfast, lunch, dinner. Everything is there. All their therapies, their doctors are there. If they want to learn vocational skills, vocational training, how to sew, how to do, workshop, whatever they want to learn is right there at those senior facilities, man. And then when they leave to go shopping or whatever they do, right, they go out as a group, man. But how many stories have we heard about those that are fighting the disease of addiction and they taking drugs home, methadone, or taking some other drug home, and then they leave the drug in the refrigerator. The child sees it and thinks that it's a milkshake and drinks it, and the child end up ODing, man. How many of those stories have we read? So you would think that a sensitive, sensible politician, right, or a health commissioner, not like this fake one we just had around here, Lena, what's her name, Lena Wynn? They done kicked her out of Planned Parenthood already. Thank goodness. They done kicked that wench out of Planned Parenthood. She wasn't even in Planned Parenthood. I don't even think she's a parent, but she wasn't even in Planned Parenthood 8 months. I guess she was pregnant with no opportunity, huh? They done kicked that wench out of Planned Parenthood. Don't send her back here, man. Send her back here, we're going to put a bow on her and write on her forehead, return to sender. We don't want her back here in Baltimore City. But all I'm saying is that as a health commissioner, you would say we're going to use holistic treatment to help those that's dealing with the disease of addiction in the city, man. And Baltimore got a lot of property in Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore City. Could say, look, we're going to build a facility similar to what I think it's Erickson that owns Oak Crest, and also over there on the west side is Charlestown. But they need facilities like that so that you can help the person holistically, man. Because you're only talking about an acid and an alkaline. So you essentially can detox a person by putting them in the bathtub. I remember Dick Gregory telling me how they detoxed Mayor Marion Barry when Marion Barry got caught smoking that cocaine or smoking that, right? And he said Marion Barry had to go to court. And what they did was they put Marion Barry in a bathtub for 24 hours. And every hour they poured a pound of Himalayan salt in the bathtub, so that the salt was pouring the drugs out of his system, because when Marion Barry went back to court that Monday or Tuesday, he was to be drug tested, and if he had drugs in his system, then they was going to hold Marion Barry in jail. But he said when they went back to court and they tested him, wasn't a trace of no drugs in his system. So this is where, again, those who practice holistic medicine should be able to say to the city, this is what you can do. But because Wall Street is heavily invested in these opioid centers, Wall Street don't want no holistic treatment. And so this is where your governor comes in and your mayor comes in, because they're obligated to Wall Street through these bonds to keep these centers open, man. It's a moneymaker right now. It's the biggest thing going right now in America when you look at it. It's the biggest thing going, man. It's the hottest thing in America right now. Okay? So I just wanted to put that out there, because there's still more to what happened on Monday that's still not being explained to us regarding what really happened down there. All right? So again, you tune to the State of the City, and I thank those that's tuning in and coming on. But we got to have some holistic treatment centers, and that's what the Panther Party did. So we don't have to wait on the government to do that. If we just look at what worked in the past and look at what Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. did, right? Revolutionary Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. did in Chicago. And what the Black Panther Party did, not just the breakfast program, the lunch program, even the Nation of Islam back in the 60s had a real detox program to help our people get off of drugs. Okay? So that's the kind of program. You saw the Malcolm X movie? They talked about how they use nutmeg. Okay? That's a whole nother thing to talk about. How they use nutmeg. But you have to use a mixture of nutmeg and something else, because you do nutmeg alone. That nutmeg or nutmeg or whatever you want to call it will take you up out of here for sure. All right? But we got to teach our people that, because even though they talk about homicides in Baltimore, they talk about murders in Baltimore, the number one killer, man, is still drug overdoses in the city. And that's just the ones in the street. We ain't talking about the ones in the suites. We ain't talking about the doctors, the way the doctors killing the people up in the suites right now. So I say that to you, you got a loved one in the hospital, check on them, man. Check on them. Don't leave them in there by themselves. But they can check in, but don't check out, okay? But you tune to the state of the city. So that brings me to, because I'll come back and get more into the Epstein, but that brings me to what I want to talk about in this case with Trump and his so-called tweet. And if we have that clip, I will try to see if I can pull it up, because there was, as I told you, through their telegraphing, right, these coded messages that clearly on the 15th there was something that was going to go down. So the big to-do event, of course, was all this talk about Megan Rapinoe, right, the white girl who was the soccer player who had something to say on the 15th on Monday, right? Had a press conference, one-woman press conference, again, seeing that was all staged. Then you had these so-called tweets, right? In which every time Trump says something, next thing you know, the Democrats should be screaming impeachment. It's like impeachment gone wild and wilder. You know what I mean? It's like you can't impeach him because the Senate is not going to let you remove him. So why keep saying you're going to impeach him? To the ordinary citizen out there, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, they really think he's going to be impeached. And you hear Negroes, I hear homeless people talking about Trump going to be impeached. You know what I mean? I told them, stay out of white folk business. You know what I mean? Some of them can't even spell impeached and be talking about Trump going to be impeached, man. But all I'm saying is that you don't fall for the social engineering for the most part. And if this is a fight between two groups of white folks, we should be using it as an opportunity to organize our people like never, ever, ever before. My brother David Johnson was talking on his show today. And I listen to his show, man, religiously. And if you know what I mean? I would listen like a Hebrew Israelite supposed to do. Shout out to my brother, nothing but love for him. Now, you pull up this article that he mentioned on his show today, which is in the Wall Street Journal, and one of them is at MSNBC. Let me see if I can find a clip, because I want you to hear this, because while you are following these fake black politicians, man, running around here using the gotcha, running around here using the boogeyman politics and politics on you, talking about, they were saying if Trump get in there, we in trouble. That's what they were saying, man. Ain't nothing happened to me since Trump been in there. Anything happened to you since Trump been in office? I mean, this is the game they've been playing. Like running around here like Chicken Little, Turkey Lurkey, Henny Penny, and the rest of them out of a book telling you the sky gonna fall if Trump get in there. That we all were gonna be rounded up the next day and everybody was going down to concentration camps, man. The only one they gonna be rounded up going to Guantanamo Bay is the one that they gonna charge with sedition that I ain't following in. I know the conscious community brothers and sisters not following them, okay? But now, this was front page in the Wall Street Journal and also on MSNBC. I want to play this clip, man, and let you see why you falling for the okie doke. Why you falling for the distractions and the diversions, man. We're losing power in this city, losing power in the state, losing power in this country, and nobody's sounding the alarm about it. That's the sad part, man. I mean, real black media is sounding the alarm. But these fake black media, fake black radio, the fake white liberals, right? They're not sounding the alarm about the dirty secret in the black community, right? That nobody's talking about, man. But I'm going to give you this clip and let you hear this for yourself. So I don't want you to say, Brother Muhammad, you making it up. Brother David Johnson, y'all making it up, man. So let me see if I can get this clip out the way, then give it to you. But what this is talking about, because as I said, all politics are local, man. And of course, we're talking about when everybody talk about everything else going on, it's still the economy, stupid. You know what I mean? It's still jobs, 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 man. So I'm trying to see if I can find this clip of MSNBC talking about home ownership. This article that was in the paper today, man, and at MSN Money, said that the fastest growing home ownership in America right now is in the Hispanic community, man. It said that the Hispanic community, which is now 18% of the U.S. population, man. It said, what happened to us? We was 13% of the population. Now, we're fighting a war, man, as Dr. Francis Cress Welsing has said. As many of our leaders, Marcus Garvey, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said. But in war, we need an army, man. And if the basic thing God gave us to do was be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, man. He didn't say be fruity now. So if you're fruity, you done already canceled that out, man. He said be fruitful, right? And multiply. So you should be having some children, man, the basic thing. If you a man and you ain't trying to reproduce yourself, man, you don't even deserve, and you can reproduce yourself. If you a woman and you ain't trying to reproduce yourself or your man, right? And you can do it, you the very basic principle that God gave us. You are in serious violation of, man. So we at war and we need an army and you ain't even producing an army for our people? An army for our people? But the Hispanics are producing an army. They're getting younger with a younger youth population. Now in Baltimore City, years ago, there were those under the city health department that looked at that. The white demographers that looked at that said that the blacks are getting younger with a younger population while the whites were getting older with an older population. Now, to those that ain't thinking on a racist level, that wasn't a problem to them. But to those that was thinking, right, on a global level and on a racist level, say, what can we do to cut off their numbers, man? So our numbers are slowly diminishing right now, right? But here comes the Hispanics being brought into the city, brought into the country by who? Catholic Church, which is the Jesuits, and the Jews. So who controls the money, right? The Vatican. Who controls the banks? The Vatican, right? Who controls the real estate, right? The late Baba Curtis Bird always talked about the 40 thieves in Baltimore, the Jews that cornered the real estate markets, working with the banks, right? So now the Zionists are saying clearly to the banks, you can lend to the Hispanics, while at the same time shutting off money and resources and services, even though we have what's called the Community Reinvestment Act, where banks are supposed to reinvest in the black community. The same banks that our people go and deposit their money in. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, PNC, right? What's the M&T? Some of these other banks that's around here. Nobody's doing a real, just with the NAACP Urban League, man, these groups that failed our people. Your congressional members. Say, show me the numbers of black homeowners that you've given mortgages to. Not adjustable rate mortgages, not reversible mortgages, man. But where the projects in the black community that they finance? Nobody's keeping a report card on that. Meanwhile, they're giving money to the Hispanic community. So the fastest growing homeowners in America, man, this report says, are the Hispanics. That's what they're doing. And they said that for the first time, the lowest homeowner percentage in his, let me read the article. Hispanics are experiencing the largest home ownership gains of any ethnic group in the U.S. A turnaround for the population hardest hit by the housing bust that could help buoy the market for years. The home ownership rate for Hispanics has increased more during the past several years than any race or ethnic group, including whites. The rate, which hit a 50-year low in 2015, has risen 3.3 percentage points since then, according to the U.S. Census Bureau data. The overall U.S. homeownership rate bottomed in the second quarter of 2016 and has grown 1.3%. Now, goes on and says, while Hispanics compose only 18% of the U.S. population, the group accounted for nearly 63% of the new U.S. homeowners gained over the past decade. Let me read that one more time, man. While you falling for the diversions and the distractions and the social engineering, while your congresspersons, we got, do the math, man, because I checked it. They got 38 members of the Hispanic caucus in Washington. We got 55 members of the Congressional Black Caucus, man. You may as well go join the Hispanic Caucus because they looking out for their people, man. Who the hell is the Congressional Black Caucus looking out for? The gays, the midgets, the immigrants, you know what I mean? And immigrants, they talking about are the ones south of the border, man. They ain't talking about the Africans. They ain't talking about the brothers and sisters from Haiti. Let's be clear about that, all right? But we talking about the real bread and butter. We talking about the real, what some call the American dream, which is, of course, real estate, man. We talking about what you can use as a come up, all right? Home ownership is what we talking about. And the dirty little secret that many of us don't want to talk about is, again, how when Barack Obama was the president, right, more blacks lost their homes, man. And if I ask me, see, this is what black radio don't talk about. They'll open the lines and say, if you lost your home from 2008 to 2016, call in and let me know. See, they don't want to have no real discussion like that because it's too painful and hurtful because it was the transfer of black wealth. Only few news outlets like Black Agenda Report, Glenn Ford, Bruce Dixon, and others would talk about that. The greatest transfer of black wealth back to Wall Street and to the banks happened under Obama. And Obama was your pacifier. I know, brothers and sisters, some that was in the conscious movement, man, that lost their homes. Some in the mosque lost their homes. Some of them still fighting for their home. Some in your churches and your organizations. But you don't want to have a conversation about it because you don't want nobody in your business. You want to tell everything on social media, but you won't talk about that because it's too damn embarrassing. Somebody as smart as you got swindled out of your home, man. And the only thing that schmuck attorney general in Maryland offered Doug Gansler and Martin O'Malley was that campaign, your mortgage late, don't wait. What the hell you gonna do about that, man? And I knew some politicians, I ain't gonna tell their names. I knew some politicians, the only one that brought this up and talk about a moratorium on home foreclosures was State Senator C. Anthony Muse, man. But nobody else wanted to. The little roosters was running around here trying to introduce it, trying to get some politicians to introduce it in Annapolis and other cities. Because I remember talking to Mark Nafziger and some of the other ones, man. They said they couldn't get they were trying to get Melvin Stooks to introduce it when he was down there. 2 tons of no fun, Melvin Stooks. You know him. You know what I mean? So black home ownership, black wealth, man, is the greatest crime in the last 11 years. You can't blame Trump for that. Trump wasn't in there, man. See, you got chumped, but you can't blame Trump. You got chumped, man. And now the Hispanics are the fastest growing home ownership. This in today's Wall Street and MSN, man. But black media ain't talking about that. They're talking about somebody licking some damn ice cream in Walmart. Who gives a damn, man? Who really gives a damn about that? So this article, man, says, while Hispanics compose only 18% of the U.S. population, the group accounted for 63% of the new U.S. homeowners gain over the past decade. That's 10 years. So while blacks are losing wealth, losing in population, they're increasing. You don't even see the game, man. They're about to replace you and us as the new protective class inside of America. This is what the Zionist plan was the whole time. They're the ones that's pushing this immigration, which is really mass migration. That's what the Jesuits plan. That's what the Pope's plan is. Get rid of the borders, the sovereignty of this country, and then put them in a protective status. They did this in 2013 when Obama was the president. That's why he tried to link our fight and plight with theirs, talking about the Stonewall Inn in New York, which ain't have a damn thing to do with our civil rights, man. And then after that, here comes Black Lives Matters get created out of some stink tank in Stanford, right? Funded by Soros, and they start telling you that this ain't your grandmother's and your mother's civil rights movement. They start saying this the new civil rights, talking about the gays. Talking about the gays, right? And so now the blacks will be at the bottom. The gays are going to be placed over you, and the Hispanics will be placed over the gays, or the gays will be placed over the Hispanics. This is what they're doing right now. To put them in a protective class that our mothers and fathers and children bled and died for, and this is part of the plan. They're playing now. So this is why affirmative action came under attack in 2013 under Obama. Notice Eric Holder and Obama didn't go to court to fight for affirmative action. And when you go pull back the papers and the research, it was the Jews, your friends, the Zionist Jews. A man named Baum, B-A-U-M, I believe was his name. He got 2 cases that went before the Supreme Court. They say some people don't go a lifetime with getting 1 case before the Supreme Court. This man had 2 cases before the Supreme Court. Fisher versus Texas, right, which was all about affirmative action. And the other one was dealing with voting rights. Again, our voting rights. Obama ain't fight for that. Eric Holder ain't fight for that. Loretta Lynch didn't fight for that. Your Congressional Black Caucus members didn't introduce any bill regarding restoring voting rights, but yet they tell you go vote. And as I've said, and my brother David Johnson has said, next time you go vote, look around you. What's that song say? Look around you. Look around, see if you see any Hispanics in the voting line. Look around, see if you see any Chinese, Twanese, Blackanese. You be some Blackanese in the voting line. See if you see any Pakistanis in the voting line, man. I mean, just look. Go to the MVA. Tell me you see him at the MVA. No, you don't see him. They run that game on you to tell you that you better vote. They not voting. What do they got that you don't have that they're getting? Think about that, man. Huh? So it's the games that they play on you, man. That's all. But I won't read all this article. But again, man, this is a serious indictment on black leadership when they talk about Hispanics and home ownership, man. Prince George's County right down the road. Man. That's what they call that gorgeous Prince George's. I mean, people are upside down in their homes and had their home foreclosed on down there, man. And they some brothers and sisters from the continent. They some brothers and sisters from the Caribbean. And usually where the Caribbean communities are, they're usually middle-class communities, man. Because usually right outside of Washington, Prince George's County, they all sucking off the tit of the government, man. Y'all know what I'm talking about. They sucking off that mammary gland down there. A lot of them lost their homes, man. Nobody's talking about it. And this was when Rashawn Baker was there. This is when Jack Johnson was leaving and Rashawn Baker was there. And Angela Alsobrook, who they just put in power down there. I don't think she helped nobody. Okay? So this is the sad part, man. But it's the real part that very few want to venture down the road and talk about. See? Because the same thing will make you laugh or make you cry. Sometimes I just want you to come up here and testify when I open up the line. If you know somebody that lost their home, you ain't got to put their name out there, man. You might know 2, 3 people, 4, 5 people that done lost their home. Okay? But we talking about is black wealth, man. Black wealth. So now it says minorities bore the brunt of the 2008 housing bust and their return to home ownership has been mixed. African American home ownership tumbled to an all-time low in the first quarter of this year, man. You hear that? African American home ownership is at an all. Now, who's talking? Outside of brother David Johnson talking about this. Outside of brother Donald Smith, brother David Anthony Wiggins, your little brother, brother Muhammad. Larry Young ain't talking about this, man. Kathy Hughes ain't talking about this, and they got 52 radio stations. Ricky Smiley ain't talking about this. Tom Joyner ain't talking about this. What the guy, Killer Mike, telling y'all to put your money in the white bank? Ain't that Killer Mike ain't talking about this? They got you talking about a bunch of foolishness, man. They got you talking about 4 congresswomen. Talking about the quad or the squad. You know, what the hell is this, man? Is this the Spice Girls 2.0? Charlie's Angel? Got you running here talking about the quad or the squad. And when you pull back the covers on them, all of them tied to Emily's List. All of them tied to George Soros. All of them funded by Michael Bloomberg, George Soros, Planned Parenthood. So again, who are they really working for or twerking for? And politics is a contact sport. You will get muddy on you. You will get bloody. You understand what I'm saying? You might mess around and get a concussion, man. But if you can't diss it, you can't take it, don't diss it. And these same women that's controlled by these same forces, they strange fruit. They ain't come from our tree. They strange fruit that was sent there. And they're freshman congresspersons. And before they got down there, particularly the one from Michigan, what's her name? Rashida Tlaib. The first thing she said when she was selected, not elected, because when Emily's List give you the money, and you better pull up Emily's List, as Dr. Randy Short has talked about Emily's List, and Irritated Jeannie's talked about Emily's List, and how they control these black women and brown women in Congress, and any of them that want to move up got to bow down and kiss the ring of Emily's List. Also, they tied to the National Council of Jewish Women. So when you think Ilhan Omar is really speaking for you and fighting for you, you better look again. you better look again and see who she really fighting for. Okay? She talked that yak, but when it's time to go to vote against Israel, they vote for Israel. I posted a couple of articles tonight talking about Ayanna Pressley out of Boston, Massachusetts. Okay? So you better go back and look at who they really are, who they're really representing, man. But nevertheless, again, Rashida Tlaib, the first thing she said when she got elected, man, she said in her victory speech, now she's standing there with her children, right? She's standing there with other Muslims. I ain't never heard of Muslim women talk like this, right? Right? And I've been a Muslim for years, man. All right? Right? She said the first thing we're going to do is go down there and we're going to pardon my life. She said we're going to impeach that motherfucker. I mean, this is a Muslim woman saying that. Now you're going to say that about Trump and you ain't even gotten sworn in yet. Them fighting words right there. So if you're going to say that about Trump, then when Trump say if you don't like, right, the way things are going in this country, go back to your community, fix your communities. Now, the other girl that's the leader of the pack down there is, what's her name? Alexia Cortez or whatever? Ocasio-Cortez. Now, straight out of the book, which we've been warning you is coming down the pike, with my interviews with Dick Gregory, with Irritated Genie, with Dr. Randy Short. If you've never, ever read the book, you can just pull up the 21 manifestos of the Illuminati. Straight out of the book, John Coleman, Committee of 300, man. In the book, they say they're going to legalize all drugs, pornography, and prostitution. Well, did you know as we speak, my conversation with Dr. Short over the last 24, 48 hours, in New York City, in the state of New York, where, what's his name? Oscar Torres or Cortez is from, they talking about legalizing prostitution, man. But don't worry, they're not stopping at New York. They're going all around the country to do this. They're going to be targeting black women and black girls. That's who they're going to be targeting specifically, man. And this is what they're coming with now, okay? I posted the articles on the Facebook page last night. To legalize prostitution, man, in New York. And as New York, you know who's in New York? Bloomberg. What's the other Greek Jew? Cuomo, the Italian Jew, right? This is what they pushing right now, man. So that they can make pedophilia legal, ultimately, is what they want, man. And that's in the 21 manifestos of the Illuminati in the book, Committee of 300 by John Coleman. Okay? But you don't hear Cortez talking about that, man. So all that is, again, creating social engineering. And in the meanwhile, Trump couldn't ask for a better fundraiser, man. When they doing that, all they doing is pumping up Trump and his base, and that becomes a fundraiser for Trump, man. That's the bottom line. But the Democrats will spend all this time talking about impeaching. It's like no adults or grown-ups in the room, man. No adults and grown-ups. Meanwhile, black home ownership. Meanwhile, they coming down the pike. Same Democrats acting like they're against Trump, taking opportunity zone resources and money and coming into the black community. Opportunity zones in 42 communities in Baltimore City. Yet that old fat, broke back, known pedophile, serial pedophile, accessory to cover up murder, Larry Young shit on the radio every day, knowing he's on the board of the Druid Heights Community Development Corporation, man, and play dumb like he don't know about these opportunity zones. And y'all are sitting to him, Larry, what you think? Senator, what you think? His ass ain't been a senator since 1999, man. As Prince say, 1999, don't you want to go? And he did go. He got kicked out, tricked out, and dicked out of office, man. And y'all still calling in, acting like he's a professional about something. Like he's a expert. No, he's a pervert, but he's not an expert about a damn thing, man. Because if he was, he would never got kicked out of office. Okay? But he knows about these opportunity zones. He sits on the board of the Druid Heights Development Corporation. And while the family of Cab Calloway has been talking about keeping the home of Cab Calloway and putting it on a National Historic Registry, their fight is against the Druid Heights Development Corporation, which means that's Larry Young and them snakes that's with him, he's a Komodo dragon. They want that building because the developers clearly are saying they're going to give them some money, grease their palms, as he be running around talking about he reading Psalms, but greasing them palms at the same time, so that they can get that building, get that money, tear it down, and put a little park right there, And then when the white folk ready to come and develop it, they going to develop it. So be careful when they keep running around talking about they going to tear down all these houses in the black community and build green space. Don't tell me we got enough green space in the city, man. You got a zoo if you want some green space, okay? You got all these parks around here if you want a green space. You ain't building no big parks right there in the 2200 block of Druid Hill Avenue, man. You the only ones suck enough to fall for that when they say that. And white folk don't fall for that when they say that, man. They say, no, we're going to develop and build homes. And I've talked to some brothers and sisters in Baltimore and D.C. that said that they can restore that Cab Calloway home in the 2200 block of Druid Hill. But the opposition is the Druid Heights Development Corporation, which is Jackie Cornish, Larry Young, and the crew. They're the ones, man. And they'll go down there and tell the city that the community don't want that home to be saved. No, the community does want that home to be saved. And then what they're doing is cutting down our history. Once they can cut down your and my history, then it's only a matter of time before they cut you down. They keep the home of Edgar Allan Poe. They ain't cutting that down. Or they'll keep the home of the Carroll family or the Calvert family or John Hopkins, right? You ain't going up over there to Clifton Park. You know Clifton Park, Lake Clifton, where they just had the big Caribbean festival last weekend? Did you know, as I said before, that used to be the summer plantation home of Johns Hopkins. So even though John Hopkins has been dead and gone for years, they still got the mansion up there. And so they're keeping that mansion right there, man. So that's a serious issue in terms of what they're doing for John Hopkins. So, you know, all I'm saying is that we got to protect our history, respect our history, and never, ever neglect our history. I see we closed out on the Facebook page, but don't worry, we're going to come back up and give you the second hour on the Facebook page before we open up the lines. But again, you tuned to the State of the City. So I just wanted to put that out there in terms of, I think, things that are happening in the city that we're not talking about. And we're going to dedicate an entire month, at least the first hour of each show, talking about opportunity zones. Then getting a map, man. You ever seen the movie War Room? Getting a map, right? Not putting up post-it pads, which that's nice, but we need a war room to show our people where these opportunity zones are in the city. And then whatever state you live in, you need to be able to know how you can go to either your mayor, your city council, your congressperson, your state senator, right? And pull up the map and see what these opportunity zones are. Baltimore has an opportunity director by the name of Ben Siegel. He's a Zionist Jew. So you see who they really, right? Going to let the money flow through. Then some of the money's coming through the state, through the governor, Governor Hogan. And Governor Hogan has had Lieutenant Governor Boyd Rutherford meeting with some ministers because they say those are the stable institutions in the black community. But some of their churches and their buildings next to the churches ain't looking too good, man. So we're going to have to press them and stress them if you got some sincere ministers that really want to help build up the black community, not continue to tear down the black community or exploit the black community. But again, this article, man, that was in the MSN and also at Wall Street, I mean, this is an indictment, man, on black leadership. You can't look at your black congresspersons on that Congressional Black Caucus the same after this, man. What have they done to alleviate the black pain? What have they done to alleviate the black loss of wealth? You got to really ask them that. And if you can ask Larry Young to stop having this romance and bromance with Elijah Cummings every time he comes on his show. How you doing, partner? How you doing, partner? I mean, and that's not what, hey, man, when he go on the white radio stations, they asking serious questions to his ass. They ain't having no romance and bromance with him, trying to make a hero out of a zero, and all he doing is counting his De Niro's. When he went down there, he was fat, overweight like Larry Young. Now he done had him a gastric bypass. His ass is smaller than me right now, but he's rich. He went down there, he wasn't a millionaire. Now he's a millionaire, man. Of course, you might be looking at his last days because Trump told him, he said, if you come after me, I'm going to come after you. So again, you talk softly, but you better carry a big stick. So when they start talking about they were going to come after Trump and impeach Trump, and Trump started having his people investigating him. Then they start pulling out the dirt on Elijah Cummings and his wife, right? Who just happens now to be the head of the Democratic Party in Maryland, right? What's her name? Rockamore Cummings is her name. So stay tuned for what may come of him and come of her before this year's over. But you're tuned to the State of the City. Go open up the lines if you got a thought, question, comment, because we're going to close out at 9, or maybe 5 after 9. So the phone number to get in on the conversation is 404. We'll come back up and start our live broadcast again. Phone them to get in on the conversation is 404-436-1277. If you got a thought, question, comment, feel free to shoot your comments on the Facebook page at Radio on Fire. But again, if you want to get in on the conversation, 404-436-1277. And with that, see if we got any comments up there, my brother. Yep, we do. Okay, all right, we'll go with the comments here, and then we'll keep it rolling. Again, just shout out to everybody that's listening and watching online, man. Thank you for tuning in. And shout out to my brother David Johnson, and all the D's, Brother Donald, Brother David Anthony Wiggins, and the 3 D's, man. So just shout out to the brothers and the work that they've been doing. Yes, sir. First comment.
When we finally remove Trump from the White House, and we will, whether it is impeach as he deserves or vote him out if our democracy is still in place, we will have to sterilize the country from his filth.
Say sterilize it, huh? Okay, we'll see. I think I got news for you. I think Trump's going to be reelected. I'm telling you now. Here's an article in the paper today, man. Every time they attack him, all he's doing is boosting his base, man. That's all they doing. Trump support among Republicans goes up after so-called racist tweet, man. The best advertisement he getting is this right here with these 4 Spice Girls. That's what I'm calling them, the Spice Girl 2.0, man. That's all. But you do remember the comment, what's her name, Rashida Tlaib said, right? She said, we're gonna impeach the MFer, man. Now, I ain't never heard a woman talk like that. Now, you know,
it's
again,
a different age.
If you're going, this is the time they in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, next question or comment.
Why don't you mention that Trump and Epstein partied at Mar-a-Lago with NFL cheerleaders?
Well, I mentioned about Trump and the young girl last week who worked at Mar-a-Lago, right? Virginia Roberts. She said that's when she met him. And then it's alleged that Trump didn't bar Epstein from Mar-a-Lago because of that. Now, I don't know the story about the cheerleaders, but I know they were talking about that recently, that they were going to have some kind of Republican event down there, and they were going to have strippers. And they said that they said they're not going to have it because of that. You understand?
Yeah.
But again, the only photos that I've seen of Trump and Epstein and this girl, Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Who now they said she's like just vanished. Nobody says they said she was found unconscious or unresponsive, right? So nobody has seen her. But the pictures I saw was older pictures. I haven't seen no recent pictures, right? So I keep it fair and keep it balanced, period, when it comes to talking about that. So yeah, but I think whoever it is that asked the question. But again, if there was any videotape of Trump, as there is out there with Bill Clinton, then you better know that the deep state would have released that videotape by now. Doctored or not doctored, that videotape would have been released when Epstein was arrested last week. But the thing right now is I'm seeing, since that's a fight between Trump and the deep state, again, who gave the orders to arrest him, right? Because he was coming back in the country from France. And now, let's see what will come out of this in terms of how this continues to go forward at the same time. But good question. Next question.
What is your problem with the squad?
The squad, I just told you. I just said they tied to Emily's list. Emily's
But
list
that's
is
a
tied to Planned Parenthood.
Well, they didn't
I got
have
a problem
money.
with anybody
They
that's
didn't
funded
have
by
money.
Planned Parenthood, because if you're talking about Black Lives Matters, but then you're taking money from Planned Parenthood, that's a direct dichotomy of saying Black Lives Matters. The place that more black males are killed is at Planned Parenthood than they are killed in the street by the police. See, if you don't know that, then it demonstrates that your lack of deductive reasoning, or whoever you're getting your information from, is not making it plain to you. That if you get money from Emily's list, if you get money from Planned Parenthood, then that's a direct dichotomy of saying Black Lives Matters. That's all. Cynthia McKinney wouldn't do that. And you know what happened? They, of course, ran Denise Majette against Cynthia McKinney because she understood that as a black woman. You understand? Now, the other group, as I keep mentioning, is George Soros and the Billionaires Boys Club. That's the group that's tied to the deep state that Trump is fighting against. So once they give them their funds, then they run them. That's all I'm saying. They staff their offices with their people. So when you start looking at what these women are pushing, they're not pushing for black people. They're not pushing for straight black folk. They're fighting for the LGBTQ, which is a Zionist-controlled organization. as I keep saying. They fighting for the white feminists. They're not fighting for, and I just finished saying, blacks have home ownership. You see, they introduced any bill to talk about home ownership, talk about moratorium on black foreclosures. They're not fighting for the masses of our people is what I'm saying. But they're being put out there to confuse our people is what they're doing. You understand? And that's part of the game that they're doing to create that confusion. Have they even had one town hall meeting talking about opportunity zones? If you heard me talking about it, how come Cortez haven't talked about it? How come Omar hasn't talked about it? How come, what's the other one named? Talib hasn't talked about it. Or what's the last one? The one out of Ayanna Presley. How come she haven't talked about it? That's all I'm saying. We talking about black wealth, man. And if they ain't talking about that, then they're part of the diversion and the social engineering. And then you start calling them, hey, look, man, you had Maxine Waters, Cynthia McKinney, Barbara Lee, Sheila Jackson Lee. What was the one they killed before Obama, when Obama and Clinton was running? Stephanie Tubbs Jones. Yeah, they killed her. All right? Let's be clear. They never called them the squad. You understand? So, again, why they just call them the Fab Four, man? You know, all this they keep playing up is around the 50th anniversary of the Beatles in America right now. Why do you just call them the Fab Four? You know what I mean? Make them sound like some MTV reality show, right? Girls Code or something like that. You know what I mean? It's all game they play. But most people don't see it because they get wrapped up in the emotions, man. That's the bottom line. But we who are awake, we see through the games. Next question, my brother.
What are your thoughts on the 9/11, I guess September 11th, First Responders Fund being cut?
That was the fight. That was, and unfortunately, one of the things that what's his name got taken down for when he gave that big speech on the floor talking about the 911 fund and why they wasn't funding that years ago, Anthony Weiner. So you know, prior to that, they wasn't even talking about him messing with them young girls till he got up there and gave that speech. But no, they should have their funds because, again, one of the greatest crimes committed against this country was September the 11th, 2001. Operation Bojangles. If you don't know what it was, pull it up. Operation Bojangles. It was 5 targets. It means in suburban Croatian language, I think it's the Big Bang. But it's interesting, they came out with a TV show called The Big Bang, right? I think this year was the last year for it, okay? But nevertheless,
Got nominated for an Emmy.
The 5 targets was the White House, the Pentagon, Sears Tower, the Transamerica Building, and the World Trade Center. Those are the 5 targets, okay? Project Bojangles, Bojinka. You can pull it up, read about it. I'm not going to get all into that. Maybe when September comes, I'll go back down and share a lot of that information that some of you may not know and will be hearing. But if you listen to Brother Muhammad and my numerous interviews with Baba Dick Gregory, we talked about September the 11th, 2001. The name of the operation was Project Bojangles. Next question.
Is an empowerment zone like a federal enterprise zone?
Well, again, when it came to the empowerment zone, most of our people didn't know about the empowerment zones. That happened when Clinton was in office. Enterprise zone, empowerment zone. They brought him to Baltimore. Kurt Schmoke became a millionaire. His wife, Patricia Schmoke, became a millionaire. Dan Henson became a millionaire. Their close friends became millionaires, man. But Kurt Schmoke didn't create no other black millionaires, man. And that's the sign of a good mayor. We're the black millionaires, because then the black millionaires are hiring young black men and women. Kurt Schmoke didn't do that, right? So they came into Sandtown Winchester, and everybody descended on Sandtown Winchester, and it became a big feeding frenzy like you at the Kalahari Desert at a watering hole, and everybody got rich except Sandtown. And here we are today. They came back then with the promise zones under Obama. Most people didn't know about the promise zones. So now this is the first time that our people have been made aware about the opportunity zones. And you know where they heard it for the first time? From Brother Muhammad. They didn't hear from Faraji Muhammad, Larry Young, none of the rest of them. They didn't want to tell our people about the opportunity zones. And this is what they do. They keep the real information away from our people and keep our people with a lot of this social engineering, dumbing them down with information, and then not saying, look, this is how you can benefit, and we can benefit from the opportunity zones by setting up a CDC, a Community Development Corporation. So next question, my brother. Good question, though.
They ended you on FedBook. I'm glad I found you here on YouTube.
Yes.
And Okay. Yes, I was just trying to explain this to someone in L.A. Something is up with Garcetti and Nipsey Hussle.
Yes. Yep. Well, I'll have to come back and do a show on that, the Garcetti and Nipsey Hussle. Because most of what they've been telling us, I don't believe happened out there.
To
You know what I mean?
Nipsey Hussle?
To Nipsey Hussle, absolutely. And they said, of course, now some said it could have been a Machiavellian type of move, right? Like they said with Tupac and Biggie. But nah, they was killed for sure. You know what I mean? Some said it could have been a sacrifice with Nipsey Hussle as well. But we do know that they said that he was under some threats when he was filming that videotape with John Legend and was the big guy?
DJ Khaled?
DJ Khaled. So
Yeah.
they had extra security. So it's been a couple of videotapes that's been released and some videotapes that hadn't been released. But I had to come back and do almost like a whole segment on that to really slow it down and rewind it and talk about, of course, what was, because there was still a lot of signs and symbols in terms of what happened with Nipsey Hussle, gematria, and numerology with Nipsey Hussle as well. But, definitely a good artist in terms of the work that he was doing. And he was talking about things like opportunity zones. He was set up in an opportunity zone. He was talking about doing work with young people with coding and Silicon Valley and everything. So he was way beyond what most of the hip-hop artists normally are talking about. Good question, though. Thank you. Next question.
Should the black church use its cash to reinvest in the black communities?
Absolutely. Because it's black people who support the black church. So absolutely. They have to do that. But they got to come away from big business. A lot of these ministers sit on the board of a lot of these business groups like the Greater Baltimore Committee, which is, of course, a quasi-private public shadow government. So you got, say, for example, what's his name? Hathaway, who's over at Union Baptist, who sits on there. You got, what's his name? Todd Yeary, who just came here from Chicago a few years ago. He sits on with the Greater Baltimore Committee. You know what I mean? So what happens is that Jesus said you can't serve two masters, right? You're going to hate one and love the other. So you got to look at who are they really working for when they're sitting on these boards. And oftentimes, they're not looking out for the best interests of the masses of our people. Next question.
We kind of covered this earlier, but they said that Trump and Epstein had a party with 30 guests, and those two were the only men there.
Okay. All right. Send me the link. It may very well happen. The only question is when. How long ago was that? That's the bottom line. But good question. And, of course, as I keep saying, that there's more. The more you dig into this Epstein case, you see there's more layers to this Epstein case and more foundations as well and organizations and naming the names in terms of politicians, judges, lawyers, celebrities, athletes, right? So you better look at all that. These weaponized entertainers, as my brother Irritated Genie have always talked about. Next question, my brother.
Did I miss it? Can you say more about Area 51? Is it another distraction?
It may very well be, because again, the United States Air Force said if you come out there and bum rush them, they're going to shoot you down. You know what I mean? But Area 51 clearly, just on the surface, because it happened at the same time that they've been talking about the Apollo 11 launch, right? All of that's been hyped up as well. So clearly, it's another diversion and another distraction with that number 15 being put out there as well. If you got that third eye open, 51 is a reflection of 15. Next question.
Why are you so hard on Catherine Pugh, and where is she?
Well, you meant to go past her house. Anybody seen Kathy? Right? So, but why am I hard on her? Because again, I don't know if I want to give all of it. I known Kathy Pugh for years at Bethel AME Church when she was at Bethel. Okay? Leopard just don't change her spots, man. And everybody knows what Kathy Pugh was then. And she just took them tricks from the streets to the suites. You know what I mean? Same thing happened with Sheila Dixon, man. And what happens is she set black women politics back 50 years in terms of what she did and what Sheila Dixon did and what Stephanie Rollins did. That's all. They said, you don't have that many black women mayors. So she set them back. So once they look at her, now they're looking at all the black women mayors that way. You understand? And when given an opportunity to stand up and take responsibility for her actions, she ran like a little kitty cat, like a little girl. That's all. And so she should have took responsibility for what she did, as she tell our women, tell our children to do. And she failed to do so. So many people believed in Kathy Pugh, and she disappointed them. But it does no good to be in a position of power if you can't execute power. And I can see if she was a young politician doing something stupid like that. She's 69 years old and did something stupid like that. Like Nat Oaks. He got in trouble at 29 and then again at 69. But Dick Gregory did say if you're dumb at 29, unless something happens, you're going to be dumb at 69. All right? So that's all. That's the problem I got, the main problem with Kathy Pugh. Okay? Then she ain't create no black millionaires. She created a lot of white millionaires around here, as I keep coming back to. Show me the black millionaires that she created while she was the state senator, right? Or while she was the mayor. And I had a brother in the Nation of Islam. He got a bakery up on Park Heights, Brother Kevin. And he used to do catering jobs for her as a state senator. I told him, if she ain't trying to make you a millionaire the next year, you need to leave her alone, brother. Okay? So that's the sign of you of a mayor that got some real power, brother. Make some millionaires, man. That's all. Millionaires. And she wouldn't do it. But she made some white millionaires, I bet you, while she was down there. Right? Some Jews got paid. Others got paid. Our people got played. Andre Bunley got a $100,000 job, but they ain't no millionaire. All right? Some of the Muslims, I know Nation of Islam, they got a little contract. They not no millionaires, though. They could have got a big security contract. They didn't get that, man. So, next question before we begin to wrap up.
Kurt Smoke wants to create a city University of Baltimore. Yep. Do you have a problem with that?
I got a big problem with that. On the surface, it might sound good. But what they're really talking about doing is he must have missed the top of the show when I talk about that.
Yeah, I think so.
What he is talking about doing is essentially merging Coppin with the University of Baltimore. Now, notice he jumped over Micah, which is on North Avenue. Now, he ain't say he going to merge Micah with the University of Baltimore, right? He said Coppin and CCB. Now, I just mentioned opportunity zones. Coppin State University is in the heart of the opportunity zone in that region, in that corridor up there. Do the math. Micah's down on North Avenue on one end. They coming all the way up to at least north in Pennsylvania, man. That's why they had the fake stage riots right there. Micah, this is a land grab. Is what they're not making no more land in the city. So if the University of Baltimore comes over and take over Coppin, there goes your history of Coppin, man. They're in a lawsuit right now, right, about reduplication of services and the funding of the schools. This has been the four black universities, Coppin, Morgan, Bowie, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore. They haven't solved it. Now, if they put Coppin under University of Baltimore, they're going to say, that's how it's solved, man. They put Morgan under Johns Hopkins, that's how it's solved. There goes your HBCUs is what I'm saying. They're fighting for their life. So if a white president if the president of University of Baltimore was white and he said that, those would be fighting words, man. But they used Kurt Smoke to say it. And that's why they brought him back. Because I said when they brought him back, that was part of the plan. They're going to put Coppin under the University of Baltimore. Now, if you think it's good, you go and applaud Kurt Smoke then. If you think it's good. But University of Baltimore would never relinquish their power and come up under Coppin and let Coppin take them over. All right? So think for yourself. That's all I'm saying. What's that Taco Bell say? Think outside the bun, all right? Next question before we wrap up.
We need to stop giving our resources to March and other entities for burial. Cremation will give burial monies to survivors to build up their family. Cremation is the way to go.
Could be cremation, but funerals shouldn't be that expensive at the same time. So I can't tell a person how to bury their loved ones and send them off in terms of when they make that transition. But funerals shouldn't be as expensive as they are as well. But I agree. For some that want to go that route, they can. But yeah, I understand what he's saying. Funerals shouldn't be as expensive as they are.
I believe Trump will be reelected also. That's why in 2022 we need the Honorable Carl Snowden of Annapolis in Maryland for governor.
Who did you say? Carl Snowden?
Carl Snowden.
We got to get him back in office. He ain't even in office right now. He used to be an alderman, right? Yeah, I remember Carl Snowden. I haven't seen him. I saw him when they were talking about the white woman that used the word nigga down there. She was a delegate, right? Right. Okay. I'm not going to say anything else about that. All right? But that's the last time I saw him. So I respect him and wish him nothing but the best. All right?
Last one. This is interesting. Our people have been subliminally seduced to not use our thinking power. Diet and food stamps along with lead poisoning has made some unable to analyze or see the truth.
I agree. Yes, sir. That's what the great Dr. Delbert Blair always talked about. Dumbed down, comatose, medicated, you know what I mean? And miseducated, you know what I mean? So, no, that's real. So, Thank you. Whoever said that, of course, they was right on time with, of course, what they said, how that's affecting our people. But what we got to do, of course, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, we don't have to condemn a dirty glass. Just put a clean glass next to the dirty glass, and the people can choose for themselves, so that we can begin to pull out of them what's been put into them, so that we can make a better people. But we're gonna need that with everything that we're up against in this city, in this state, in this country right now. So that's very key.
It's plenty more, but take this last one.
This last one right here?
Yeah, this is the last one.
Okay.
Is it true that the current mayor of Baltimore, who initially said he would not run, is now considering a run? Who is really controlling him behind the scenes?
Well, yeah, he's saying that he's going to run. Bernard, they said Bernard Hopkins was a fighter, but right now, this one down here, his last name is Bernard Hopkins. You know what I mean? Bernard Jack Young Hopkins, because he worked for Hopkins for 30 years. So anything Jack Young does, Hopkins has a lot of pull and sway over him. He's been in politics at least for 23 years or more. And again, I don't know if I have time next week, but the Baltimore Brew wrote an article maybe about 3 years ago, saying that Jack Young was raising a lot of campaign money. That's where you got to follow the money. But they said the majority of his money was coming from out-of-towners. So if he gets elected as mayor, then all of the out-of-towners that's been giving money to Jack Young will be the people that he will owe alliance and allegiance to right now. And that's the sad part. He's saying right now that they will not be working with ICE to round up those that's in the country or the city illegally now. But at the same time, they had a press conference with the feds yesterday talking about all these new resources that's coming into the city. They had a press conference last week with the feds talking about 64 black men and women that was rounded up for some illegal criminal activity. Now, I think it's hypocrisy that you want to applaud when they round up black men and black women, right? But when you got some people that's in the country, in the city illegally, they've already broken the law. We tell our children 2 wrongs don't make a right, but you don't want to round them up. Now, I'm not talking about those that's in the country and in the city legally did it the right way. But I'm talking about those that's in the country illegally, they the rut of the litter. They ain't even the best of the best that's being brought in. And many of them are committing crimes, okay? Ask the 2 black women. If you don't believe me, pull up the article about Betty Williams and Ann Dates that was killed by Hispanic from El Salvador in what's that community by Cold Spring and Wabash by the subway? What's that community called right there? It's not. It escapes me, but it's right there is where they were killed right there though, and they sent him back since then to El Salvador. He might have did a week or 2 or a month. They probably held him in jail until the trial, but nevertheless, them 2 women would still be alive. Now, had he killed some trannies out there? Oh, they've been talking about say her name. You know what I mean? But they were 2 straight black women, and you don't know about it because your black media hasn't talked about it. Well, had it been the other way around, remember the little girl they said shot his 2 Hispanic guys, one in the head? You see how they played that story up, right? But yet, when it's straight black women, get no empathy or sympathy. Straight black men, you ain't getting no sympathy.
Is it Ashburn?
Man. It's close to Ashburn, but it's right outside of Ashburn. I know the name because my younger daughters went to the Ashburn Middle School, but it's called something else right there. But Arlington is called. The Arlington community right there is where they were killed, man. And nobody talks about it, you know. But then that happened, and you remember the 3 little children that came in the country illegally was up in the Jewish community, and they damn near got beheaded because somebody didn't pay what they didn't pay the middleman who trafficked them into the city. And they was at Mount Washington and cross country, and they was living up in the Samaster apartments, man. I know black people can't get up in there. And ain't nobody ever said, how these people get up in there? Who signed for them? They had to have ID to get in there, right? So, you know, again, y'all don't want to have those kind of conversations, man. But we're going to wrap up, get up out of here. Don't forget, man, support Radio on Fire. We're going to podcast the show up on Radio on Fire on our Facebook page of State of the City. And again, send in your donations. Cash App Radio on Fire. Cash App SOTC Muhammad to support the State of the City. We'll be on, of course, WFBR Saturday, 12 noon with Brother Irritated Genie and Dr. Randy Short. And then we're back here next Wednesday, 7 p.m. And we may have those 2 brothers join us. If we can get them in studio, man, I'll drive to DC, PG to pick them up, man. Take them back home. But I want to get those brothers up and on. Because, again, all of this is vindication. And the reason why we should be in syndication with the information that we've been laying out and giving to our people. So, straight black pride, Hotep, God bless. Let's continue to clean up all this mess. Until next Wednesday at 7 p.m., stay watchful, stay vigilant, stay out of them stadiums, stay out of them malls, crowded places and spaces. I may have to say stay out of them methadone clinics, all right? But nevertheless, stay watchful, stay vigilant, and until next Wednesday at 7 p.m., God bless. Let's continue to clean up all this mess. I've been your host, Brother Muhammad. Peace.